Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host, Kushalmehra. Um, I was not sure whether I wanted to do this podcast on Indigo or not. By last week, during a monologue, somebody had asked a question and requested I do one podcast on this. So I was like, what can I discuss about it? I mean, no, other than being sympathetic. But then I actually started digging up, and I got so angry that I was like, नहीं नहीं मैं भी podcast करूँगा इनको तो गालियाँ देनी चाहिए. So here we are. I was like, let's talk about this. Today's podcast is going to be an attempt to actually give you a bit of a past history of how it starts 2.5 years ago. And I'm glad that Sanjay has agreed to come on the podcast, because Sanjay, for those who don't know, Sanjay has been on my podcast so many times to talk about Khalistan and the Air India bombing. People forget that Sanjay is actually a lawyer, a former pilot. He was part of the union, and he's an expert in the aviation industry. So Sanjay, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. This is my core.
अरे मालूम है मजे की बात क्या
my
मालूम है,
core.
किसी को नहीं मालूम है, क्योंकि तू मेरी पॉडकास्ट में सिर्फ कनाडा, इंडिया
Palestine,
रिलेशंस
Canada
और ये
और
सब
सरदार हो, हाँ, वो
बस
evil terrorists, हाँ.
उसके बारे में आता है तू. So Sanjay, my request to you is, take your time, don't cut yourself short, but start from where this problem emerges. Like, what was this notification? What was the government demanding from the airlines? Did other airlines comply? And what were the compliances and why were the compliances?
Yeah. So, this all, Kushal, goes back to, actually, I'll take you back in history. Aviation began of course, in India in the early 30s, and JRD Tata in early 20s, and JRD Tata started Air India, etc., etc. Aircrafts flew. Now, by the by, what happened is uh, aviation all over the world developed into a science, and they started having regulations. How many hours a crew member could be on duty, how many hours a pilot could be on duty, etc. In India, the DGCA brought the first real regulation called AIC in 1992, thereabouts. And then that slowly refined into what was known as a CAR, Civil Aviation Requirement. So if you go to the DGCA website, you will see a list. If you click CAR, you'll see a list of CARs. I mean, we use the word CAR, but they are CARs. And they govern everything in aviation, from licensing, health, weight, your training, your duty time, your flight time, your license renewal, everything. It also denotes what kind of operational manual you will have, what kind of books, what kind of sequencing you will have, everything. So the CAR on flight and duty time limitations was pending for a long time for the pilots. Now, what happened was, there is an organization called Federation of Indian Pilots, led by Captain Randhawa, who himself a retired Air India pilot, who was himself a DGCA inspector, currently led by him. They had filed a writ petition in the Delhi High Court saying, "Pura dunya change hua hai. Why is India still following antiquated rules? So we need a new DGCA CAR for flight and duty time limitations." Now, uh, they dilly-dallied. It was a case against the DGCA. They dilly-dallied and stuff like that for a couple of years. In 23, the hearings came about, and then Mr. Scindia, I think, was just the minister then, and maybe he communicated through the DGCA and government lawyer that we'll put something in place. January 2024, the then CFOI Captain Chabra released the DGCA CAR on FDTL for pilots of all carriers in India. Immediately, there was a hoo-ha from the airlines, and lo and behold, Captain Vivek Chabra gets sacked from that post within a matter of days. Within a matter of days, okay? And this is the truth. I know the guy. And then somebody who is a favorite of another carrier comes in, and what do you know, the next week, wo stay ho gaya. Stay ho gaya mane, they issued a thing, it's held in abeyance. These pilots who were already in the court, then the other two unions joined, and 3-4 pilots ke unions were in the Delhi High Court and saying, this car has come out, they sacked that poor guy, and they've stayed this one. Now, when a government releases an order, वो order लागू हो जाता है. This order was not revoked, it was stayed by the subsequent officer, because airlines protested that we can't handle this. So the DGCA came to the court and said, let me talk to the airlines and see what we can do. So the DGCA in February of March of 2024 went back to the airlines, and airlines said, this is too difficult for us. You give us time to implement. So they said, "ठीक है, we'll give you time. How much time do you want?" They said 1 year. So they went into cold storage, and airlines in that 1 year, 2024 March to 2025 March, began recruiting, began advertising, began training their pilot, first officers to go to command. All the airlines started, Indigo included. But when March 2025 came and they did not implemented, the FIP went back and filed a contempt petition and said, "You have not implemented. You promised last year before the High Court you would implement." So the DGCA said the airlines are asking for more time. So the court said, let me give you few more months. July 1st, we will start phase 1. Now there were 22 odd clauses. So 15 हम लोग implement करेंगे July में. The last 7 we'll do on 1st of November. Now mind you, almost all the airlines had recruited a number of pilots by then and shored up their numbers. And in the meantime, you also know that Air India placed a record order of 555. Then Indigo beat that, and Indigo added some 700. Together, they've got almost 1,500 aircraft on order today, plus the others who are there. We've got a total of about 2,000 aircrafts coming in the next 7-8 years into India, maybe 10 years. And that's a huge, huge amount. Now, on July 1st, phase 1 of this new car, they're calling it new car. Halaki, it's done in 23, and actually Mr. Sindhya also left. I forgot to tell you. After this guy got sacked, of course, Mr. Sindhya got transferred to another ministry, and we got another minister. Okay, after that. So he had promised to implement it. Now, they started phase 1 in July of 2025 with the promise that by November 1st of 2025, we will implement phase 2. And that's what it was. Every airline had continued to recruit. Indigo, strangely, in June of 2025, stopped recruiting pilots, paused. And I will come to it later about their disclosures, etc. But in September, on the 19th of September, and this we've got to know only now, on the 19th of September 2025, Indigo got rid of 40 senior first officers who were going to go for command. They also failed almost everybody for command training in these 5 months. Come October, they file an application for a winter schedule, which increases their flights by 6.3% over the summer schedule. Now remember, winter is 5 months, summer is 7 months. March to October is all airlines summer schedule. October 28th to March 27th, the next year, is the winter schedule. So Indigo files for 15,014 flights a week, whereas they were doing 14,158 prior to that. They increased the number of flights by 900, despite the fact that they did not have enough pilots and the new DGCA CAR rules were coming in. Now, that is the phase 2. What was the phase 2? The phase 2 was about weekly rest. Now, weekly rest for pilots is not a weekly rest. Let me clarify that also. It actually comes after the 168th hour. You spend 7 days working, and then you get that 36 hours, which was now becoming 48 hours. Also, for landings at night. Now, the other thing is the definition of night. Earlier, it used to be 0 to 5. Okay. This car changed it 0 to 6, which means 1 more hour, 6 a.m. Now, the airlines objected to that. 6 o'clock cannot be night, it's morning. So, that was the other issue. And number of landings, instead of 6, it became 2 at night. Okay. So, these were the significant changes that we were going to see. In November itself, all the airlines kicked off with the new rules. All the airlines had adequate pilots. Indigo, quietly, unknown to us, cancelled 1,000 flights. This only we got to know when the minister announced it on the floor of the house. Okay, Indigo cancelled 1,000 flights during that month, and nobody was any the wiser. Now, had the DGCA and the ministry been alert, they would have said, hang on, Charlie, you've cancelled 1,000 flights. You asked for 1,000 flights extra. All that is cancelled and you're still not able to meet the requirement. Let me roll you back. Let me take those flights back. But they didn't do anything. No alarm bells rang. On the 1st of December, Kushal, mind you, 1st of December, they have a meeting, and this the minister says. On the 1st of December, we had a meeting with Indigo. They said, Sab changa hai. We are all going well. On the 2nd of December, one software in Pune, here, Mere airport, Pune, mein, some airport glitch was there in the software, Amadeus booking software. It affected Delhi. After that, the dominoes started falling one by one, and they couldn't track their pilots. Aircrafts were stuck. Pune, mein, there were 9 aircraft, parked on the runway. There was no place. And then the mayhem that happened. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and it's just gone on and on. Now we've reached a stage. Now, very interesting. On the 3rd, all this shit hit the fan. On the 4th, these guys had a meeting. The DGCA called Indigo chaps to there. So Indigo CEO was holidaying somewhere. COO was somewhere else. One is in Amsterdam. One was in Spain. Kidhar na. So one of their principal advisors, who's in their MD's office, ex-bureaucrat from that same ministry, went to meet the DGCA to talk. And this is typical of how Indigo functions. And they started, there's, chalo, hum log ko ye clause hatao, ye clause hatao, ye clause hatao, close kar do, we'll start. And they agreed. Not little realizing that these guys did not have the pilots in the first case. Why did I give them extra flights? Rather than telling them, boss, you cut your suit according to your cloth. Tere paas 400 pilot hai na? To tu 400 flight kar, 1000 flight mat kar. That should have been the logic. But what they said is, acha, you have robbed 4 houses. You rob 4-5 more houses, we'll keep the punishment in abeyance. That's exactly what they did. Now they allowed them dispensation so that they could go on to, stabilize the schedule, so to speak. But it has taken 8 days. The system is finally stabilizing, so they claim, today on the 9th of December. This started on the 2nd of December. So it gives you the perspective. We have cancelled more than 4,000 flights till now, right? And we are still cancelling, or they are still cancelling. Now, everything would have been hunky-dory had it not been for the social media uproar. And I commend all the people, the big accounts, the small accounts, the chunumunus, everybody, the kids also, who were posting viral videos from airports. I've seen such, I must have been on 100 shows in this week of various TVs and all sorts of news. I've seen couple getting married on video call here. And somebody is doing a reception somewhere else. They are sitting at an airport in Bhubaneswar with a video because Indigos canned them. They got indigoed. This is a new term, indigoed. I got indigoed. They got indigoed. I've seen, poor 2 boys, young boys, their father died. They're going to immerse the asthi and they're stuck at an airport for bloody 2 days here. My own family was coming from Bangalore to Pune. Flight came to Pune, it circled, couldn't land, landed in Bombay. They abandoned them. They had to come by cab, find a cab. That also, cabbies got very, had this anxiety. And what they started doing, 2,000 ka tha, 4,000 kar diya. Going from airport to Villeparle, Andheri, they were charging 2 grand, boss. Because there were lakhs, thousands and thousands of people. There were no cabs available at the airport in Mumbai. So all this exploitation started. And you've seen hotels in Aero City, which were charging 8 and 10,000, started charging 50, 60, 70. And unfortunately, in our country, we do not have a passenger charter. If you go to Europe, if you go to UK, if you go to the US, you have such a strong passenger charter that is legal and binding and justifiable. So instantly, the passenger, is a delay, he gets so much money. He'll get so much of meal. He'll get a hotel room. If it's delayed beyond this, he gets an overnight stay. Plus, he'll get 400 euros or 600 euros or 300 pounds. It's written in the law. There's no looking left or looking right. In India, our charter is like a piece of toilet paper. You can't wipe your ass with it. And that's the sad thing. Lakhs of Indians. And this is where, I reach out to somebody like our Prime Minister. You want to bring in Udan, where you're subsidizing air travel for the poorer sections. Uday Desh ki Nagrik is the expanded form of it. He wants people in Hawaii chappals to fly in the air. Oh, lovely. That's a superb idea. And that's an idea whose time has come. But what about those? Do you think those people can afford a 70,000 room in AeroCity just because Indigo canceled their flight? No. So there's got to be some provision made here. If an airline is such a dominant power in an economy, and we'll get to all their mishaps and missteps later, then what happened is the shit hit the fan, and then obviously President Putin was in India. I know of people who were to go for their event. They were stuck in Navi Mumbai. They couldn't reach, and obviously there was chaos. Obviously, and it was an embarrassment. We were looking like a banana republic. We are the fastest growing aviation nation on earth, and the third largest aviation market in the world. Boss, airplane manufacturers, airline owners come and sit at our doorstep, our ministry's doorstep, waiting to get entry into India. And here we are running around. We've got nuclear power, but we're holding a candle, running to put a light in a room. That's the state of our nation. That's what they made it. And our ministry was bloody clueless. They should have been on the spot. Shooting reels and all does not behove a minister. I'm sorry. Wo sab baat mein karo. Get onto the scene here. He should have been at one airport and meet gali suno na kabhi. Let these bureaucrats go to the airport and hear the pain of the people. They were waiting there. I know of people who waited 12 and 18 hours at airports. Because A, they couldn't afford the hotels. B, they had nowhere to go. There was no flight. They were told, अच्छा ये Indigo 12 बजे का cancel हो गया sir. आप चाहे 4 बजे वाले ले लीजिए. The guy goes and books the 4 o'clock one. 4 o'clock is also cancelled, this guy knows. But he's booking, so then he cancels that. He has to get a refund. वो 50% कट गया उसका because it's past departure time. I'm sorry. This was the scam going on. Now, of course, government ordered refunds and all for everybody from the 5th. What about 2nd, 3rd, and 4th? Crores of rupees has been spent. Who is going to address that? There are about 100, 200 passengers who are getting ready to file a PIL now. We'll come step by step. I want to go. So this was the situation. And then, of course, they started all this campaign to, CYA, cover your ass. That's all. Basic cover your ass campaign has gone on.
अरे वो Facebook का वीडियो देखकर तो मेरा ऐसा दिल जला है यार. मैं तो नाम लेके बात कर रहा हूँ. साला वो हर गलत जगह पे आ जाता है यार उंगल करने. वो क्या है यार आदमी.
And वो पागल हो गए थे. And the joke is, when I started digging into this, and I wrote a couple of articles for journals in Washington and India, and I started looking into this. I went into, I'm also a shareholder of Indigo, and I've just done an investor call for foreign institutional investors on this subject at 3:30 today. We go to their investor calls. When you're a shareholder, you get investor readouts every so and so from the company. If you go back to May, June this year, they have told their board as well as the shareholders, you don't have to worry, this FDTL matter doesn't bother us. They placed it on record. Okay. Now you go read the November 4th readout of the board meeting minutes and what is shared with the shareholders. Okay. And with the stock exchanges. The FDTL, flight and duty time limitation, new ones will have minimal impact on Indigo. देखा ना पूरा impact on Indigo minimal होगा, but India पे मार तोड़ के आया. That company has lost almost 30,000 crores of its market capital since the day this happened. Who is to blame for this? And India must have lost 100,000 crores in productivity or more. No one is talking about these things. I know the little guy, the passenger, has lost so much, and we'll talk about the passenger charter later. But I want to tell you this now. What I've shown you, they stopped recruitment. And what is the number now? 65, 70. Chalo, they are now saying maybe 130, 160. But now is where they'll start getting hurt. Today, the government ordered 5% reduction of their flights. That's not enough. Okay, by me, they increased 6.5%. You are reducing them 5%. They are still higher than where they were in summer. Summer se winter, they asked for 900 flights extra. You have only asked them to reduce 5%. So they're still more than what they were in summer. This is not enough. You've got to scale them down and curb their growth, because at some point you've got to start helping other carriers grow. We cannot have a situation where 50% of the flights they operate, they are the only carrier. Think about this. They operate 2200 to 2500 flights a day at peak earlier. 50% of those flights, maybe about 1100, 1200 flights, they are the only carrier that operates on a sector. That's the kind of numbers. So obviously it's a monopoly, it's not a duopoly. We keep calling it a duopoly. It's not a Air India operates only mainly on the trunk. It operates elsewhere, but its strength is on the trunk routes because it's an international feeder carrier. It's feeding its international routes. So what the government needs to change is having rules. Number one, I wish the Prime Minister or somebody else ordered a huge CBI or a CVC investigation, do a forensic audit, because इनके सब emails मिलेंगे. ये जो भी है ना DGCA में चुटर बुटर who are doing all this nonsense with Indigo, सब पकड़ा जाएंगे. All the guys in Indigo who were drafting letters and drafting circulars here, सब पकड़े जाएंगे. People in the ministry also involved. Now what they've done is you have to bring in pilots. Pilots कहाँ से आएंगे? You can't go down the road in Linking Road and pick up pilots from trees. They take years to build. You go through a process. एक साल to CPL, 1.5 साल you go to the US and fly, you get your CPL. Okay. After that, if you're a CPL, then you become a first officer. From there, you go to a senior first officer. Then you spend 3 to 4 months on command training and do your simulators. You go your check flights and stuff. So even if they have senior first officers ready today, to bring them from the right seat to the left seat, they're going to take 3 to 5 months. And they'll get 60, 50, chalo 65 bhi mil gaya. But they're getting an aircraft every 6 days throughout the next year. Indigo is getting delivery of every 6 to 10 days, they're getting one aircraft. That means they will have almost 30 to 50 aircraft next year coming in. They'll need more pilots, they'll need more growth, there'll be more expansion. So they will have to have between 350 to 400 new commanders by next December. Now, you can't give birth to commanders. They don't come out of somebody's stomach like that. They take years. It's 4 to 6 years on an average for a student pilot to become a commander. So what is the next best thing? If they have to meet they have to do FATA. FATA means what? Foreign pilots. You bring the foreign pilots, expat pilots into India. You don't want to pay your own pilots market rates. You are going to pay 20 lakhs now for these foreign pilots. Okay, that's one of the key. Now, we go back to DGCA FDTL. People have been using this word new FDTL. We must remember that this started in January of 2024. It's 2 years. It's not new. Ye purana hai. People know it by heart. Airlines know it by heart. And the second thing is, if airlines were so upset about it, writ petition file karo na, challenge karo. Kyun nahi challenge kiya ab tak? Nobody has challenged the writ. In writ court. It is operational. And current FDTL is only meant to synchronize with global flight and duty time limitations. India is an ICAO signatory. We have to match what the FAA and the other regulatory agencies do. So this is all we were doing. The DGCs of previous DGCA was doing it. And it got stalled by these airlines. Now what's happened is it's going to come into force. Whether February or March, kahin na kahin to aane wala hai. Now the airlines will have to play catch up. There is also an element of whisper campaign ki ye bahut liberal hai, this is a wrong car, this is this. My only answer to all these critics is you take the size of India and you superimpose it and take it over America. Boss, in this same country we would have had 4 time zones, at least 3 time zones. Okay, which people don't realize. You take it over Europe, it's 12 to 13 countries breadth. India is such a huge monster country. We are a continent on our own. So we maintain 1 time zone. No one realizes in the UK, in Europe, there is night curfew. Even in the US, prime cities, you don't have night flights. Only India. Our pilots and our crew are waking up like owls in the middle of the night to fly. Why? Because we want to land when they open in the morning first thing. So all our flying international flying is really done at night. These changes impact operations at night. Why? Because there is far greater fatigue for operations that take place in not what is known as WOCL, window of circadian low. in the night times, वो जो 12 बजे के बाद, you sometimes get more fatigue, more stress, more sleep, and you can't really concentrate on those things. That's why there is a greater emphasis on more rest and less landings during that period of time. And this is how this whole thing lumped further forward. And they were originally, I believe, assured कि ये हम लोग निपटा देंगे. But it's become such an international incident that nobody could niptao anything, and we've just gone beyond all scope and this. And now it's become a crisis. Now what will happen is, what can India do? We can lower Indigo's flying thing. What should happen from a governmental point of view? Harsh penalty though, 100% in rupees or pound, dollars, or whatever it is, in rupees, obviously. The second thing is, hold the people responsible and remove them from their posts. That is in at the carrier level. The third thing is, reallocate slots to the smaller carriers like Akasa, Indigo, Air India Express, SpiceJet, and stuff like that. And break this nexus. This is the prime opportunity for the PM and the government of India to restructure this aviation network, because we have become, it's one of the most corrupt ministries in this country. I'll say this on your channel. When you take FATA, for example, bringing expat pilot, it's an ATM machine, boss. ATM machine for the babus. Because every table that poor foreign pilot's file is going na kisi ko daba ke bhejna padta hai. Everywhere. And it takes three. We had a joke. I'm telling you of a joke. Air India had about 30 or 40 foreign pilots that came in last year or the year before last. Boss, they spent 7 months trying to get the permissions. They had an 11-month contract. They didn't get police clearance. Ye sab goose ka kaam hai. And the Tatas were refusing to give goose. If you don't give goose, you're moose. So I know one guy I met from Thailand. He had finished 8 months of his contract just sitting at home doing nothing here. Home meaning in India. This is the joke. So FATA is again a complete, like I said, an ATM. And you can pay the foreigner 20 lakhs. You can't pay our guys. Indigo reduced night allowance. Indigo cut their salaries of their employees. Indigo's wage structure, and this is, you can Google it. It's on Twitter, and I've got this from somebody who was pulling out the financial record. Indigo's pilot wages and crew wages are lower today than they were post-COVID. So you can imagine, in 5 years they've compressed. They have tightened up and compressed. So if you're going to make unhappy employees, unhappy passengers, unhappy government, unhappy everybody, how are you going to succeed here? You are, they were the beacon in the aviation infrastructure in India. Operational, tight ship. They ran a tight ship. Of course, they also cut corners. We all know, when you want to do economizing of scales, economy ka kaam, then somewhere you fall off the wagon and you end up on the wrong side of the road. That's what happened this time. Fortunately, why this did not happen to other airlines is because Air India is a full service carrier, whereas Indigo operates on 5.5, 6 sets per aircraft. Pilots. When I say sets, it means 2 pilots. So 5.5, 6 becomes 12 pilots, 10 to 12 pilots per aircraft. Cabin crew also would be multiplied, by the cabin crew complement of that. Air India as a full service carrier operates on 6.5 to 7. Now that's a difference of 1.5 sets per aircraft. Okay, mota moti count 2. Over 400 aircraft, that 800 pilots difference. Excuse me. That's a huge difference. So what does that bring us to? It brings us to the point that, there was not enough monitoring by the people in charge of monitoring. Who were they? The Civil Aviation Ministry, the CFOI, and the joint director who approved the schedule. Why? Because they were all, hand in glove or in the same bed as these guys. So a lot of these documents, etc. I mean, Indigo people used to be based there. And this you can, it's legendary. You go to DGC office, even the peons will tell you, ki, "Arey sir, aisa hi hota hai. Ye hota hai." It's like that. This is what that entire ecosystem is made of. It is a jugadu system. And If I had to be crude, Indigo is the new Jet Airways. That's all. The same jugadu that Jet Airways did 10, 15 years ago, these guys are now doing. And they're using the same predatory, uh, aggressive tactics against opponents, against other carriers to prevent them. Why do they take slots and flights which they don't have pilots for? It's called slot blocking. तेरा नहीं मेरा नहीं मेरा है. Even if I'm not operating, I blocked it. जैसा हम लोग स्कूल में हैंकरचीफ डालते थे, ये मेरा सीट है. So they filed for it. That's their seat. That's it. So that slot is theirs. That route is theirs. So poor Akasa, who's been crying for 2 years, can't get it. They're small, yeah. They don't have the heft of this. SpiceJet, though he's got connections and all, they're in a flux. God knows what they're really doing. But the big thing here is that we need to take this as a learning and restructure first the institutions that we have. We have very weak institutions. We have institutions that are, relying on scraps thrown by, that it's a scavenger relationship with airlines, because airlines know that these guys have the power and they can sign away a file. And these guys know, okay, I can sign the file, so I can ask for what I want. And there is a lot of give and take. There's no way. And unless there is a CVC or a CBI inquiry into all this jhamela, because remember, there is a criminality, or there is bordering on criminality involved in this. If you have been misinformed, or misinformed your investors, misinformed the government, or misrepresented what you had, because if you said you had the pilots on the 28th of October, you can't say I now need 900 pilots in 1 year. Something is wrong then. No? So why did you say it, and what? And who is going to be responsible for this? And when you look at the board of Indigo, have you seen the board of Indigo? Look at the people. Sab
Boss,
jane
these
mane
are
hain.
very capable people.
Very big shots here, very big shots. So somebody has gone and lied to these guys. We have our G10, G20 Sherpa there. Mr. Kant, he's such a prominent, bureaucrat who's led India in the G20.
Boss, I heard
meeting.
Suhail said speak. Yaar, Suhail knows a lot of these people personally.
Of
Suhail
course
was
he
like,
would.
ये लोग इतने ईमानदार लोग हैं, इनका भी चूतिया काट दिया किसी ने.
Chutiya nahi kata, they told them lies. Is what I'm telling you. At the investor call, they're reporting to the board that we will have no impact of this FTTL. You read it, it's in black and white. If you go, just Google Ajay Roti. Ajay Roti has put all these documents on Twitter here. And that's the shock. Ajay was posting it and I saw it and I read through and I Googled, because I'm a shareholder also. So I also get that. I Googled that when I saw the mail is there. Ye sab likha hai. And they've written there. The CFO says, oh, there will be no worry. Boss, no worry. You've collapsed our economy. You've collapsed our aviation economy. You've collapsed our entire country's economy. And here is where the important thing is that, pilots are battling because they are fighting for their life, because they want this rest. They want that. It's not about them going on more holidays or things. It's about passenger safety. It's about less stress. For the passenger on the street, it doesn't matter whether his pilot has done 2 landings or 6 landings. It does, because he knows now that his pilot is well rested. There is no stress. There is no fatigue. The guy is coming safely to take me on a flight. How can airlines now deny that just because it's going to add an additional cost? Do one thing, don't fly at night. Don't fly at night. It won't impact you. Fly during the day. Why aren't these airlines thinking about that? Or at least Indigo, which has sought the benefit. Change your slots. See, now what's going to happen and what must happen is absolute scrutiny of not only Indigo, all the airlines. There must be a beacon on each one of these guys' documents, licenses, permits, FDTL, everything. You've got to have and change. You've got guys in the DGCA who have criminal cases pending against them. You have, inquiries, CVC inquiries. And these are now look at the joke. Kushal, look at the joke. The same guy who approved Indigo's winter schedule increase, okay, without verification, is the same guy who's issued them the show cause notice. And he's the same guy who's going to look at their inquiry proceeding. Can you imagine this? So चोरी पुलिस बन गया, चोरी जज बन रहा है अभी.
तो वो जो फेमस लाइन था ना, वो तो चाचा है वो भतीजा है, जो भतीजा है वो चाचा है, चाचा भतीजा एक ही है. तो मतलब
एक ही है.
बेसिकली मतलब इंडिगो ही डीजीसी है और डीजीसी ही इंडिगो है.
That is, it is now, Indigo is India, India is Indigo. It's like Indira gaya. It's
ये
no
क्या
longer India
बकवास
is
है
Indira.
यार. क्या मतलब यार, शर्म भी नहीं आती इन लोगों को. और you know
And
what they
it
are
is
doing
so.
is, I can guarantee you that, see, for all the talk that Modi micromanages everything, this itself is the biggest proof. You know it, I know it, that now Modi is like, अबे ये चालू था.
And I mean, the level of corruption is crazy. I know young pilot kids who don't even get that. They've got cleared medical. क्लियर ही नहीं होता है, वो बेचारा हर रोज आता है, इसको दो उसको दो. बॉस, cleanse this system. It must be one window, no face, and throw these crooks out here. Investigate them, find who is responsible, clear all this shit out. Because you're having this joke of the system has become a joke, and we don't realize this. That's the most important thing. The guy is the judge, jury, executioner, hangman, and he's also the criminal. He's also responsible to this. Then you read now okay, they gave him a show cause. शो कॉज का रिप्लाई देखो. Such an arrogant bloody reply from the airline after they have screwed up the whole country's economy for 1 week. And as though, oh, we don't know what happened, this don't know. Arey boss, apne khud ke look at your records. Your own pilots are writing, your own staff are writing in anonymous letters. And I get lots of SMS, lot of WhatsApps from their staff, whether it's pilots, whether it's cabin crew, all thanking because I'm taking it up here, I'm taking it up there. No, my point is very simple, boss. I come from the same field. I'm deeply committed to this field because my whole family has been in this. My family spent almost 85-90 years in this industry. So for me, it's my lifeblood here. I know nothing more than aviation. That's all I've been through all my life. I've been here since I was 18. So it hurts me when I see this. And I'm not, I loved Indigo as a great company. But what they're doing, they've killed their own employees first. Their employee morale is gone to dirt. Forget about what's happened with the passengers. That can be. Your own employees are cursing you today. Cursing you. Not today only. Over the last 1 or 2 years, the atmosphere has changed. And they've got this, couple of these expats who come in, who believe, danda and, sabko patli gali se nikalo and let's do any jugaad. They've learned the new way of jugaad, not the Indian style, but their own style. So it's so difficult for some of these pilots. I spoke to a pilot and I won't say, this person was telling me, sir, I also spent 34 years in this, but last 10 years, my salary has not changed. And I got a shock. 10 and this pilot is a senior pilot, family, grown-up family, kids are getting. But I'm trying to figure out. And yet, remember this. Kushal, remember this. There is a restraint on their trade. Our pilots are not permitted to go abroad without a 6-month, 12-month notice. And then they have to get an NOC from the DGCA. Why? DGCA ne inko pilot banaya. And they can't move to, now if you compare Emirates or Qatar, they are paying their pilots 20 lakhs. We are paying our pilots 5 and 6 lakhs. So the guy can't even go there. Acha, ye agar was not enough, they bring the guy to the airport. Pilot does say Bombay, Delhi. Kar diya Bombay, Delhi. He's waiting. He's told you wait at the airport. You sit in a lounge, airport lounge seat. You wait. If there is no flight, you wait. You finish your 13 hours there. That's what nonsense they're doing. And this is the way it's mental torture here. And I've seen, I come from a time in the mid 80s when, it was pilots were Rajas, whether they were all from the Air Force and stuff like that. You treat, the pilot takes off from one city to another. He holds 300 people's lives in his hand here, or her hand. We've got so many women pilots now. So yeah, you've got to give them some basic respect. They're very skilled professionals. And, one up and down movement, we could see the end of their aircraft. So we've got to understand there is fatigue, there is stress. And Treat them, your employees well, whether whichever category they come from. I've spoken to even ground staff, and they're all unhappy. And so many letters are flying around. I posted one, it got 100, 200,000 views. It shows how upset people are. And there is a groundswell of support now for the Indigo staff, because they've not been treated like human beings here. And this is true of, even if you say most airlines have this issue, that they now treat them just, bhagao, whip them and make them work. उनसे निचोड़ो जितना निचोड़ना है और फेंक दो. Because we've got to bring respectability back into aviation. I'm not saying there's dignity of labor everywhere, but let's have good, decent human relations practices. And it's very important. So first, Indigo has to fix its own house in order. Then it's got to sort out its battle with the government and the regulator. And that's going to be a tough call. Also, I will tell you, all these dispensations, etc., that were given under duress because ऊपर से instructions आया. अभी ऊपर I don't mean RCR, I mean other ऊपर. But everybody is now washing their hands of it. This DG is a good, decent guy. Okay, there are others who are not, and that's what this government needs to get into and find. Pick and choose your good officers and make sure you can restructure this industry with them. Otherwise, this is a bomb waiting to explode. It's just going to go up in flames. That's how I can see it. Yeah, this is the sum and substance basically. I find it very, very tragic that one of the best carriers in our country operationally has done this. He can say sorry as many times, but they've not exhibited that they are apologetic enough. They should have, and I hope that the government makes a fund of 200-300 crores and makes them deposit that there and use that to compensate those people of the second, third, and fourth who got robbed left, right, and center. That's what it needs to be. Airlines must need to be taught a lesson. Passengers are the least priority today. It's all very well. First class wale ko bithao, khana shana de do, daru sharu de do, and make them happy. Same with business class. Look at the passengers who are actually traveling at the back of the aircraft. There is no passenger charter in this country that has any meaning.
Okay, you look मेरा किस्सा सुन. मेरे मम्मी डैडी they were gonna fly back from Toronto to Delhi and Delhi to Mumbai. So Air India sends these emails na, you can upgrade your flight, you can upgrade your flight. So from the Delhi to Mumbai stretch na, they gave me an offer for upgrading my parents' ticket from business class to first class. I looked at the offer, it was good. I upgraded them. ठीक है? Once the upgrade was done, ठीक है? Then they cancelled it. Now I have to follow up with Air India. I follow up. So they say you have to send this paperwork. I send them the first set of paperwork. Then they say nahi, because I sent them my bank account detail because I had upgraded from my credit card. They're like, no, तुमने जिसके लिए किया है उसका आप कैंसल चेक, बैंक अकाउंट, आधार कार्ड सब कुछ दो. भेजा. ठीक है. उसके बाद एयर इंडिया गोज AWOL. I was like, अरे भाई पैसा ही नहीं आ रहा पैसा. Oh, yeah, I mailed them 4 times. I'm not going to take the name of the person who was interacting with me. Stopped replying to me. फिर मेरी सटकती है. ठीक है. I just wrote that one tweet online. And because I have a giant following, all hell broke loose. ठीक है. ये तो मैं famous हूँ करके all hell broke loose. And I start getting calls, helter-skelter from Air India. We are very sorry, sir. Within 3 days, I get the refund. One refund in my mom's account, one refund in my dad's account. My point is, what if I was not famous?
What if you
How
didn't
would
have the
these
reach?
people treat me?
And that's why I say that passenger charter put in place for everybody, not so that Kushalmehra gets a refund, but everybody gets a refund. And it should be automatic. They do so much of gafla, these airlines. They try and weasel out of paying somebody something and all that. Now, if you look at the EC 261 compensation and assistance to passengers, the regulation, it's a regulation that came in 2004 and in the European Union. Flight delays 3 hours and more, or cancellations within 14 days of departure, denied boarding, or any flight within the EU or departing from the EU, straight away you get euro 250 to 600 euros. Sida, no question asked, based on your flight distance and the delay time, plus whatever you'll get food, you'll get hotel, and you'll get transport in addition to this. You just write it down, send it, nobody can question you. We don't have anything like this. And this is tested in the courts, tested in European courts, tested in the British court. We should fight for this. That airlines are made to compensate passengers based on a table. All this, give him two fruities, give him one sandwich, chicken jungli sandwich, wo sab faltu hai. Boss, if you are making money off me, I am paying you, and then you cancel the flight or you delay the flight, you pay me for it. Simple. And that's what we need to fight for, so that people get their due rights as passengers. There's not one air passengers association of any repute that is willing to fight this or has fought this in this country. I think, I've been getting so agitated. Maybe one of these days, passenger association khol ke thok do inke upar ek PIL, and then ask the ministry to do that, because that is where we are leading up to.
No, but I think this issue. So I'll give you an example. I was flying last year from Arizona State to Michigan State, and my flight got delayed by 6 hours. So even there, I am not saying the airlines were avoiding, but वो भी थोड़े शाणे थे. उधर जाके we had to go to the counter and say कि boss, we are stuck here. What do we do now for 6 hours, right? The flight is delayed by 6 hours. So then they're like, oh, how about this? We'll give you a lunch voucher. I had lounge access because, I have that credit card that gives me global lounge access, etc., etc. Many people were just sitting at the airport for 6 hours. And there is this rule that after 8 hours, you get a hotel room or something like that. Some international airlines. I don't know if it applies for domestic airlines. But see, I have so many questions after listening to all of this. My point is that, like, what the hell is happening in this entire process, where agar the DGCA is so pathetic, then in hindsight, do you think this catastrophe was the best thing that could have happened to the industry?
Could be, yeah, if we course correct, and I've seen all the Telugu Desam MPs, MLAs, everybody now rushing onto social media and tweeting how great the minister is, etc., etc. I've engaged with a couple of them also. My point is very simple. I'm not saying he's crooked. I think he's the captain of the ship, boss. If the shit went down on his watch, he's responsible, he's culpable, because he did not get the ship in order. Titanic hit the iceberg while he was on the deck. He's responsible. It's very clear that the DG may be a great guy, very nice, sweet guy, but if he's not issued a show cause notice to the guy below him, who's the crook who cleared the winter schedule some of this airline, then he needs to go. It's quite simple, because if he allowed his schedule to get through without verification, he is guilty, he's culpable, or he's goose. One of these three. What is that CFOI doing? If she has not checked their command status, their pilot training, their standard force, absolutely guilty, yeah. Whatever their job function may be, these 2-3 people in this organization need to be weeded out, because they are the ones who are responsible for this mess. And there is nobody pointing fingers at them. They're all getting each other to, clap them on the back. Oh, such a brave man. He sat 5 hours in the control room and he looked at the screen. Are jata kya kiya hai? Boss, the world was following. Dominoes were collapsing. I mean, I was getting called. Al Jazeera TV was laughing. Kya ho raha hai India mein? This is the banana republic, yeah? We were made to, we're talking of sending a man on the moon, we're sending spaceships to the moon, nuclear missiles that fly, and we can't get a bloody, airline schedule in order. What are we here? And forget getting it on order. Our systems can't handle it. What if we were in Canada or in New York, where you get these blizzards every bloody winter, and flights get thrown out of gear for days on end? What would we have done? We are lucky we live in a country which the weather is temperate. We get a little bit of fog in Delhi. वो भी आता है तो मर जाते हैं हम लोग. It's chaos in Delhi. When in that Jan-Feb season, when fog aa jata hai na, it's shitstorm. Okay. But it shows a weakness in our infrastructure. It shows a weakness in our entire system. And this is where we course correct. We should look at improving the structure, and of course allowing more airlines in. If you have to give foreign airlines a shout in India, do it, because you're allowing one guy to grow, become the big gorilla amongst little monkeys here. So one airline is now controlling what you eat, what you drink, and how much you pay for an air ticket all over. You see, it's no longer a duopoly. Air India is only surviving and strong because it's backed by the Tatas, who have enough financial heft to take on anybody in this country. But if it was not the Tatas, they would also gotten beaten to submission, Air India. Akasa is struggling. When I say struggling, because they're trying to deal with this, system. I'll call it system, because they can't compete with the blue airline and the red airline and all this, because they don't get slots, they don't get routes, and they've got pilots sitting. Their aircrafts, unfortunately, are Boeings. They got stuck. They're coming now in the next year. Hopefully, they'll start. They're a great airline. I like them as well. They operate well. They've got a very good setup. They've got very smart promoters and stuff like that. Mr. Junjunwala, late Mr. Junjunwala, was also part of them. We need more such airlines. Otherwise, we are always going to dance to the tune of one or two guys. And this is what the government needs to know. Create a scenario where more people can come and start airlines that grow into big trees. Not also regional carriers. Of course, regional carriers is second. But you've got to do this. Otherwise, passengers are dirt here. Passengers are dirt. As it is, nobody gives a damn about them. And that's the sad part about it.
Okay, 2-3 people have asked questions. I think
I
how
can't see.
significant no, how significant is the concern about Indigo monopolizing the civil aviation sector, and would it been too fair to impose measures to prevent this? See, here's my thing. I also don't like the idea कि वो जो price gouging हो रही थी, and the government came up with the brilliant idea, अभी हम price fix कर देंगे हाल फिलहाल के लिए. I think we just go from one bad idea to another. The point is that when they were hitting 60%, well, before hitting 60%, they would have hit 40%. Like, why can't they just break the company into two? Like AT&T का एक example है historical.
Absolutely.
Break the company.
Absolutely. In the US, there is a DOT and DOJ will get into antitrust legislation. You'll get, antitrust investigations will start. Because if you're so big that you control the economy, even the US government won't allow it. Now, for example, you look at Alaska Hawaii Air. Okay, just look at how many hoops they had to jump through to get that merger through, because they were worried that they were creating an animal that would become too big and control the fare in that Pacific Midwest and right down the aisle. Similarly, with AT&T, they've told them, you break up these companies, make them, Baby Bell, Big Bell, all that nonsense has happened, a number of years. The government has not even thought of this. Why? Because the government the ministry was following what Indigo did. Indigo was pulling, the rope, the string. They were the ones creating the policy. They were the ones making the rules. They were the ones, making circulars for other guys to follow. That has to change now. And government must look at, by me, I would like, you look at China. China has 3 or 4 big airlines. China is much bigger than our country, has greater penetration of aviation than us. No, none of the carriers have more than 25% share stake. Some has 23, but 25-26 tak hota hai. Why? They are smart. Even in the US, you have the big 4, but you have 5 or 6 smaller guys who keep everybody at bay, and they work around. Southwest also has grown into this big monster. India needs to do something where we cap these guys. You have to cap these guys until the others grow. If you've got 3 guys who are 30 or 3 guys who are 20, and one guy who's 50 or 48 or 40 or something, then it's logical. Then one cannot use or her heft to browbeat the customer, to change the market dynamics. You can't that have. Imagine if everybody had to brush with Colgate toothpaste. There was no close up, there was no Sensodyne. It's become that situation. In
There was no
50% of the,
Patanjali.
huh? There's
Patanjali.
So in 50% of the market across the country, everybody's only using close up because Indigo is the only one that goes there. In the other 50%, they look at the Colgate and the Sensodyne and the Patanjali and everybody else. But this is where we need to draw the line and say, okay, thus far and no further. Let's now scrutinize how we can moderate this.
But how about this? A lot of, when I was researching for our podcast, a lot of people saying मगर ये sector ही ऐसा है कि इसमें viability नहीं होती है and natural duopolies create होती हैं. How would you
100%.
say that?
Now, the government has a scheme called Udan, okay, where they are lesser profitable or non-profitable or difficult sectors where they're giving a subsidy. On a line, on routes where there is no attraction for the airline to go into, the government should extend this Udan scheme there. It's quite simple. So there is a variable gap funding. So if I'm spending 3,000 rupees a pass ticket and I'm only charging them 2,000, the government pays me that $1,000. And that's what they're doing with Udan. They are giving benefits, okay, to regional carriers who go to areas which are not so sexy to operate in, right? You want to spread aviation. The other thing is government must look at reducing taxation, standardizing operational taxation, and airport fees. Boss, it's so expensive. I was doing, I was in another podcast which you put me yesterday, and we were doing calculations, and 54% of 100 rupees goes into all this falana dimka. Taxes, fuel taxes, surcharge, PSF, cute, all that stuff. So the airline itself does not gets about 50 odd rupees on every 100. We need to cut this down because, of course, you need to pay the airport. Of course, you need to pay the government. But I can understand if it was 20 or 30% at best. Let the airline earn some more money so that he can pass on and keep the fares lower. He's raising the fares because he's getting nothing out of that seat. Na? So that's why, Anand Mahindra is famously quoted once, the best way to become a millionaire is, a billionaire starts an airline. Oh, nanga ho jata hai, kangal ho jata hai. And that is exactly what's happening here. People lose their shirt because it's so difficult to run a profitable operation. Indigo showed us how, because they were really, cut to the bone operation.
हाँ, खाना भी ठंडा देते थे, माइक्रोवेव भी नहीं था.
नहीं, कुछ नहीं. अभी आएंगे ना, XLR पे आएगा. They're getting a new group of XLRs coming in the next year, and they will have ovens. They will have, flatbed seats in the front. So they're upgrading their systems, and they'll also have to upgrade their staffing. They'll have to upgrade the way they operate. They'll have to change a lot of this stuff and make it more passenger friendly and more service oriented. So I can see them having to now adopt more full service carrier attitudes. That's going to be the key for them.
Two, three more questions. Indigo is squatting Airbus production line. Should they be forced to give up these slots so that new airlines can come up in India?
नहीं boss, देखो, this you can't do. This is a free market. Airbus is an international company.
This is ridiculous. यार, अरे तेरे को नहीं खरीदने दूंगा. अरे ये क्या है?
नहीं, tomorrow you and I can get together and send $100,000 to Airbus and say, 10 मेरा नाम करते, I'll pay you later. When you can't stop me, I'm squatting. Everybody will squat here. How can you force a private corporate to give up its slots? It's booked it. It used to trade in slots earlier. That was one of the ways they made money as they grew. They would book in bulk and then sell their options here and there, and then because they got accelerated stuff, and that's how they've reached this level. Now they got a hit in the last quarter because they were buying all their their aircraft were coming on sale and lease back. Dollar hit 90, unka fat gaya. Now they've started deciding to buy it through Gift City. So you can't get into this. You can't deal with what Indigo does with Airbus is their business. It's their thing. My proper concern is only one, that Indigo should not, play fast and furious. Follow the letter to the T. Remember, this FDTL was made by the DGCA in 2024, was approved, got the stamp of approval of a high court. Yeah, it's a writ court. It's contemptuous not to follow them. I'm not saying it was a judgment of the court. It got a stamp of approval. So as and when that case gets over, I mean, there will be a judgment eventually that this is the car that is going to be. If they had so much of objection, lado na jaake. Court may file a writ and object that this car is rubbish. We don't want to follow it. But they didn't. If you calculate 30,000 crores, Kushal, loss of market cap in 1 week, they may get it back. Imagine how many pilots they could have just hired and said, "Chalo, baith jao. Garden mein
They
baith jao."
deserve it. They deserve it.
They could have had 1,000 pilots sitting for the next 5 years and getting Emirates
उनका
salary.
शेयर का मैंने ऐसे प्राइस देखा ऐसे टंग करके।
आज थोड़ा रिकवर हो गया 0.37% या कुछ, but it's still there and thereabouts because the full extent of the punishment has not come out. The full, the government is still to give its thing. Acha, coming back to the reply to the show cause was a joke. They gave, we don't know what the reason was. ये था फलाना डिमका, थोड़ा weather था, थोड़ा software glitch था, pilot FDTL. And then he says, but you have not given me 15 days to reply as per your manual. Abe, idiot, you did not follow his manual and High Court order to recruit pilots. Now you're telling him, look at the irony. The company that did not recruit or pilots to fulfill the FDTL norms is now telling the DGCA, you give me 15 days to answer this.
उल्टा चोर कोतवाल को डांटे।
I laughed when I said, this is the height of shameless arrogance. Yeah. Dripping with arrogance. The reply was just dripping with arrogance.
This is where, इनफैक्ट मैं तेरे को बोलता हूँ, मैं शेरबीर से भी बात कर रहा था, शेरबीर पनाग से। हम लोग प्राइवेटली बात कर रहे थे और मैं बड़ा चिड़ा हुआ था। मैंने बोला मेरे को वैसे ही इंडिगो पसंद नहीं है, पूरी एफडीआई लाओ साला अभी रीजनल कैरियर। हाँ, तो वही था। Do you think like Sherbir was not sure because of national security reasons or बहुत सारे reasons? Sherbir was very sensitive about it. He's like, यार बाहर का पैसा आएगा, तू समझ प्रॉब्लम होती है, ये बहुत सेंसिटिव इंडस्ट्री है।
एक जमाना था कि बाहर का पैसा था. If you go back to 1992 when the air taxis bill came in and private operators were allowed to set up air taxis, if you remember, Jet Airways was funded by Gulf Air and Kuwait Airways originally. And then a lot of the companies within India and the groups within India started making a hoo-ha, and Naresh Goyal had to return this money to these two guys, to these two airlines. Then they brought in a law that said 49% is the maximum. You can have equity for a foreign airline to participate. You can't go higher than that. Now, foreigners can have if they're NRIs. But on national security grounds, I don't believe India should and India would exceed that limit. 49% is a very decent limit for a foreign airline to come in and set up if they're so keen on doing stuff. Boss, I always say that all our rights, passenger rights, like Emirates keeps asking, Qatar keeps asking, Turkish keeps, tell them either how you spend 1,000 crores in my country, set up an airport or set up an engineering hub or set up something, you employ 10,000 people here, then you take the rights. Na? You're sucking traffic out of my country and you're taking that money abroad to your Gulf countries or wherever, Turkey or wherever, Britain. So do some investments here. Not only employ people who are working at the airport and stuff like that, but set up gainful employment, bring industry here, do a make in India. Why doesn't Emirates have a huge MRO here or Qatar? Do that. They have the money. And India has the space. India has the technology. India has the people. You can do it. Then the Indian government will happily say, Le lo or 500 seat. Chala do. Because these guys are adding to India's economy. Not to say that by having flights they don't add, but they're also taking this money out. There's a flight of capital. Now, when a foreign carrier earns money in India, he has the right to take it away. But when he's setting up an industry here, which is related to aviation or an airport or whatever, an ancillary industry, that stays here. Let's have a system where you do this. Chalo, karna hai kya? Ye factory bana do is, you do some training institute or you do a MRO or you build an airport or let your, owners set up an airport and please go ahead. Take whatever. So I believe that bringing full FDI, I'm still not for it. I think 49% is there, but you must make, incentivize it by saying, okay, we'll give you preferable slots and routes, etc., so that they can break in. And you tell them, along with, say, 10 metro city runs, you do 10 back, regional city runs also. And that levels the field for them. But the problem is for airlines who, and I do consultations off and on. I've had NRIs and foreign groups who looked at setting up, airlines in India. And what I've seen is the moment we discuss the tax structure, they get scared because ये tax इतना भारी है. When I say
Exactly.
tax, I mean
मैं यही बोला था,
composite
why
of
is
everything.
no one talking about government's hesitation in letting go of ATF
Yes.
revenue, or at least relax them a bit and give airlines a breathing room?
वही तो I was saying that earlier, na? Out of every 100 rupees, 50 bucks is going to all these guys. And remember, ATF tax is determined by states. So whilst ATF may be cheap in Mumbai, it is bloody expensive in Kolkata. Okay, because West Bengal has a different rate. It's a different rate in Kerala. It's a different rate in Delhi. So that's another problem. Also, you will find that it's half the price in Dubai. But if you go there and bring it back, you charge custom duty on the fuel in your tank. Are you aware of this?
यार क्या
For
पागल
tankering.
लोग हैं यार हमारे देश में, मतलब रिटार्डेड है हमारे लोग.
So this is some of the gochi that goes on idhar udhar,
No, this is just, this is fleecing. This is done purposely to collect bribes. मैं तेरे को बोल रहा हूँ, this comment है ना, sums it up. How will an airline be profitable and run when they have to pay the bakasuras of DGCA?
तो मैंने
They have
साफ बोला,
bakasuri है ये लोग.
absolutely. Or
It's very hard to be sympathetic to Indigo after what they have done, but they do have a case also.
नहीं see, उनके payroll पे थे ये लोग. Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of 10,000 employees, there were 10,005, and 5 came from there. 5 sat in their office at Safdarjung, and the rest sat in their office in Gurgaon. ऐसा होगा. They played the game well, boss. They played the game like Jet Airways. It's not that they've not. ये सब दूध के धुले हुए नहीं है, like they make out. You put a foreigner in front, but what you do behind, everybody knows. It will all come out. All this will come out eventually if the government is sincere in investigating this matter. You put 4 babus on a committee to investigate the people who were paying the babus, nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. Okay. It's absolutely self-defeating. Don't say high-powered committee and all. That's bullshit. I've spent 40 years in and out of those offices. I've seen all those guys. Right? It doesn't work this way, boss. It doesn't work.
Before we wrap up, tell me concrete solutions that you feel are needed to get out of this mess in the long run in this industry.
Number one, rationalize taxation on airlines so that more passenger money flows to them. They can then. Number two, I'm not saying cap fares, but first of all, create a passenger charter. Okay, very important. And once you create that passenger charter, airlines will then respect their passengers. Thirdly, bring in another airline or two to bring this Indigo's dominance down. It's essential now. Now it's more essential than ever. We've seen what they can do, and we cannot rely on them to keep the nation first. They've not done that. And it's a very harsh thing I'm saying, but Indigo has not kept the nation first. They have allowed our country to fall into this cesspool of delays, diversions, cancellations, everything. And it's been a mess. It's been an absolute mess. And that's why we need to change that. Fourth thing is allocate slots and routes fairly. Let's not have these grandfather daddy slots that they've been doing and slot blocking and stuff like that. You'll find these smaller airlines growing. We are not allowing the smaller airlines to grow because the 2 big airlines are predators. Okay, at least Indigo has the heft to crush anybody, and that's going to be the problem. 4 is, boss, you've got to restructure this DGCA. He does licensing, he does investigation, he does training, he does just about everything. He meaning that organization, and that's the bane of it. That's where the problem happens, because that's where the crack, everything slips through the cracks. That's where, the corruption, the allegations, the goose, the poos, everything, the bakasuras, all that comes into play. Because everywhere, and averagely, people, there's a kid who's done training, 5-10 lakhs is kept aside just for this bus. Convert your license, ye karo, wo karo. For an airline, every step, or an MRO, I've gone for MROs for my own clients. I know foreigners coming here, they get shocked at what they have to do here. फीस से ज्यादा तो इधर देना पड़ता है. So this has to be nipped in the bud now. This has to be nipped in the bud now. It's not bud. It's become a tree. You cut the tree down. Okay, cut the tree down, settle it down, and maybe slowly, gradually reduce some of Indigo's flights a little bit more. Right now, the other airlines do not have the capacity to take on Indigo's flights. They have a small stomach. They don't have enough aircraft, or they don't have enough pilots. So by default, Indigo will just cut down flights. Fares might go up in the short term. There will be some pain. But it's time we restructured for the long term now. We need a blueprint to go forward properly. And it's possible. It's not, it's not inhuman, or it's not impossible or superhuman to be done. We need to put this together. A very important point which I missed in this entire conversation, Kushal, the DGCA cannot be a den of babus and bureaucrats here. Have aviators, have professional people who are, whether they're pilots or crew or engineers, put those guys, technocrats. They understand this business. They empathize with the operators. They empathize with the pilots. They empathize with the engineers. You need that. वो नहीं है तो क्या है? कुछ नहीं है. I mean, frankly, it's like you could get a guy who's a chartered accountant from somewhere and say, "Chalo, beto, become the DGCA or become the Joint Director General." That's what you'll do. And this guy he's never flown in his life. He doesn't give a damn how many landings you do. He doesn't give a damn what WOCL is. He doesn't know when the night starts, when the night ends. For him, the night ends when he has 2 pegs and, tandoori chicken or ye khake so gaya. Whereas he doesn't realize that pilot or that cabin crew is, going on a flight at 2 in the morning, woken up and then reporting 2 hours early, and then going on a flight, taking off at 4. The kind of fatigue level that he goes through is crazy, man. And then he flies, or she flies 10 or 12 or 14 hours if it's international, or does 4 hops if it's domestic, and then lands. Boss, by the time the last sector comes, you're dozing, you don't know what's happening. Unfortunately, because of the politicization of this organization, we've got people who are not even competent who are there. Your FID and your CFOI, all bullshit. I'm sorry. Clean sweep, and get a new lot of people in. Select them through professional interviews. And look at one thing, the DGCA, 50% of all the posts in the DGCA have been empty for the last 5 years. How do you police the world's largest growing aviation market? If सब खाली रहने वाले, policeman ही नहीं रहने वाला, तो police कौन करेगा? Nobody's done it yet. They've just started, this DG has just started taking people in to try and fill up the gaps, but still lots to go. Go to the private sector now. Forget this PSU babu, the public sector nonsense. Let's just go and get people. If they're good, use them. Remove all the deadwood, man. I'm completely for this. Remove the deadwood. Get young, energetic people of integrity, people who are aviators, and people who know their job. That's very important.
Yeah, and also, there was barely any civilian oversight. Like the media never spoke about this. Nothing. Like मेरे को तो कुछ knowledge ही नहीं था इस subject का. If I would have known ऐसा कुछ हो रहा है, I would have definitely done it. But क्या मेरे अकेले से क्या होता? But mainstream media, it just became such a big issue that the mainstream media had to talk about it. Otherwise,
no, I'm telling you, mainstream media, chodo. I have, given interviews to agencies from Japan all the way to New York, and they're just calling because they cannot believe that this is the India that is Modi's India. Modi's India is collapsing like a deck of cards. And they cannot. I was on the French news agency about 2 hours ago, and they cannot believe this. I was on Al Jazeera 2 days ago, and they're mind blown. They said, You have Air India, of course, they know Air India and they know Indigo, and Indigo is in the top 10 big airlines of the world. How the shit did this happen? क्या हवाई जहाज नहीं चला सकते तो क्या न्यूक्लियर देश बनने वाला है? What are you going to do? This is where people have doubts. We are doing Make in India, talking, we'll make Airbus, we'll make Boeing, we'll make our own aircraft. अरे झाटा boss, you can't run an airline properly यार. You can't monitor it. उसके कितने पायलट है तेरे को नहीं मालूम, तो ये क्या रेगुलेटर है, क्या मंत्री है? And then all his Anap Shanap chamchas are writing, he was so good, he was standing on the floor of the house, he was dancing on the road. Are boss, he's the leader. If they lose the match, you go after Gambhir, you go after the captain. So the same way here, somebody has to pay. They're not blaming Rishabh. We're not blaming, Iyer or Akshar Patel or something. We're blaming Gambhir. Gill ko bhi nahi blame kar rahe, Gambhir ko blame kar rahe. Same way here. You've got to blame them. That's the sum and substance of our life. So
yeah, I think, but honestly, I started talking only after this whole thing happened. I started talking to folks around the Prime Minister's office, and I was like, you guys do realize this is a mess, right? They're like, no, and you'll see how the Prime Minister now has taken interest in it, and now, but it's disgusting, yeah, in this country, like the Prime Minister has to take personal interest in everything.
yeah.
Then that thing gets sorted. Like, what kind of a shitty system is this? That until and unless the Prime Minister or the Home Minister, either of these two gentlemen, they have to take interest.
Both these people have now come to look at this mess and the tragedy. And this, I'm saying this.
But Sanjay, what does it say about the rest of the lot? Wo kya kar rahe hain wo log?
And unfortunately, this ministry has always been given to coalition partners except when Mr. Scindia and when Mr. Puri were there. अभी तो समझ गया.
तेरे को मालूम है, मेरे को मालूम है, काय को दिया जाता है.
तो यही होता है. That's what is happening here. Fulus.
Yes.
That's all.
अच्छा, तू तेरे को मेरे को सपोर्ट करने का ना, चल तेरे को ये दे दिया, अभी तेरे को जो करने का कर. It disgusting. And you know what happens? And it truly is an image जो खराब किसकी होती है, क्योंकि see, like it or not, Modi ji made this government all about him.
Yeah.
It was all about Modi ji. अभी लोगों को पता चला ना कि इंडिपेंडेंटली ऐसे भी होता है. अभी मोदी जी इसमें भी दिखाएंगे. But the point, Brand India has taken a hit, right?
Big hit. Brand India has taken a big hit. I was on at 3:30, like I told you, on an investment call with foreign institutional investors. People are concerned. There were 65 of them. People are concerned about what's happening in this company, in this country, in India. And these were investment banks from all over the world that were through a Bombay-based investment bank broking bank house and they're all concerned. Tomorrow I'm doing another round table investment conference on Zoom, of course, but again, it's got FIIs, DIs, people who want to set up airports, invest in. They're looking at this and wondering, are we a capable nation? Forget about the Dharavis and the slums here and there. They saw the India shining. They saw the gleaming buildings. They saw the gleaming infrastructure. They thought things are changing. But the more they change, the more they remain the same. And they're now worried. People are concerned. And this is what, whether it's our honorable Prime Minister or Home Minister or, the cabinet needs to realize that, boss, unless you fix these critical aspects, we really can't boast of being, and look at the joke, and this is an irony, sad irony for me, being an aviation person, that Indigo proudly hosted the IATA conference in Delhi not even 6 months ago. And it was a great moment because it was the first time after the late JRD Tata, he hosted it the previous time. And so he's a big giant boss, of aviation, of industry in the world and in India. And then to see this fall from grace for this company has been sad. So they've got a lot of making up to do. But more than that, this is the opportune time for the PM to intervene and correct the wrongs in our aviation system. There's a lot of shit, man. There's a lot of shit. You can find all the loopholes. You can find all the goose punny. You can plug all this stuff and clean house. Get rid of that, Dilli ka babu culture that exists in aviation. It should go. We should be a lean, mean fighting machine, which is clean to the bone, single window, incorruptible. Because the moment you bring that in, safety is endangered. Let's remember that. Aviation is only about safety. It gets endangered. Whether it's an unqualified engineer, whether it's a one qualified somebody at the counter or a pilot or a cabin crew, everything is about that.
Fair enough. I hope people realize. I mean, from what I am hearing, the Prime Minister is now going to monitor this industry very closely. And usually, when the Prime Minister monitors things very closely, shit gets done in this country. Such is the shitty state of affairs in this country that you need two two people running this country like everybody else is a little baby. But
Yeah.
it is what it is, and it's a sad reality. Sanjay, thank you very much for coming here.
Thank you, brother. See you.
All right, guys, we'll wrap up. Go follow Sanjay on X and go buy his books. All the links, whether it's his X handle and his books, are there in the description of the podcast. As far as I'm concerned, you know the drill. The Cārvāka podcast runs only on membership. So if you can, do consider joining the membership program of this podcast, whether on X, on Patreon, or here on YouTube. If you have not liked the video, do like it right now. Subscribe to the Cārvāka Podcast YouTube channel. If you're an audio listener, do give a rating on your preferred audio platform. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste. Take care. Goodbye.